My fiancée fell in love with a student from a poor background who worked part-time at my company. She was dead set on breaking off our engagement to be with him, ready to face a life of hardship. My family believes in lifelong commitment to one person. With my fiancée breaking off the engagement, I became the family laughingstock. My mother, Eleanor Eastwood, held their files, and scumbag man and the scumbag woman certainly suit each other. My father, Richard Eastwood, ever the calm strategist, asked, "Have you figured out how to make them regret this?" I sneered, "Of course." When Victoria Sterling threw a stack of photos showing a man and woman kissing in front of me, declaring to all the dignitaries of the city that she wanted to break off our engagement, I was somewhat stunned. The photos were crudely tossed onto the table, stained with a bit of grease, but the clumsy signs of photoshopping were still clearly visible. Victoria pointed at these baseless accusations, aggressively demanding, "But someone hadn't sent these photos to me before the engagement. I might have been kept in the dark by you forever. What lifelong commitment to one person? It's all bullshit. Mr. Eastwood, if you can't even manage basic loyalty, then I see no point in us getting engaged. Let's part amicably." Victoria's eyes were slightly red. A mixture of sorrow and anger etched on her face. I had never seen her like this. I quickly picked up the photos, pointing out the obvious editing marks. And man in the photo is me, but I don't know this woman at all. I tried to take Victoria's hand to calm her, but she violently shrugged me off. "These photos aren't real. Listen to me." I pointed at the almost distorted faces in the pictures, trying to explain. But Victoria, furious as if she had personally witnessed the betrayal, insisted I was unfaithful. Even when elders intervened, Victoria refused to give me any chance to explain. Her face flushed, she stared at me, resolute on canceling the engagement. When mud is thrown, people tend to believe the louder voice. Regardless of how you try to prove your innocence, they've already made up their minds. Seeing Victoria about to storm off, I cast aside decorum, grabbed her wrist, and hastily pulled out my phone. I scrolled to my schedule for the date shown on the photos, proving I had never been to the bar depicted. But she didn't even glance at it. Tears welling up in her eyes, filled with grievance, she left decisively. Victoria, dressed in a pure white gown, looked noble and elegant, yet her departing figure seemed so thin and helpless. The stark contrast, seeing the once high and mighty young mistress tormented by love to this extent, spurred the present media to raise their cameras. The Eastwood and Sterling families had known each other for generations. Victoria and I, close in age, had grown up together and were betrothed since childhood, considered the golden couple of the city's high society. Today's engagement party was meant to formally announce our union, with numerous media outlets invited. The intention was to announce the joyous union of our two companies, but instead, we provided the media with far more explosive content. Everyone at the banquet hall was stunned. Due to the Eastwood family standing, no one dared say much, but I could still hear whispers from below the stage, some watching the drama unfold, some mocking, others sighing in pity. But more than any of this, Victoria's lack of trust wounded me deeply. We grew up together. She should have known my loyalty to her was absolute. Yet today, a few laughably fake photos negated my entire character. The lights of the banquet hall were blindingly bright. Perhaps due to panic or worry, a dull ache throbbed in my chest. But I couldn't dwell on it. I worried Victoria might do something rash, worried she would shut me out completely. Shoving the engagement ring I hadn't yet given her into my pocket, I ignored the stares and chased after her, composure forgotten. The person in the photos wasn't me. My heart had belonged wholly to Victoria since childhood. How could I betray her like this? I had to explain. However, Victoria left too quickly. By the time I reached the entrance, she had already hailed a waiting taxi and sped away. I stood frozen. The cold March wind lifted the corner of my suit jacket, seeping into my chest, bringing a wave of desperate chill. Inside the venue, Arthur Sterling, Victoria's father, was publicly embarrassing my parents for his precious daughter's sake. My father, Richard Eastwood, usually calm and strategic, gave me a look of disappointment, repeatedly assuring Arthur Sterling that he would compensate the Sterling family and Victoria. My mother, Eleanor, usually loving and kind, couldn't bear it anymore and fainted, collapsing to the ground. Disappointed parents, a chaotic scene, the sound of whispers. It felt like a blade hanging over me, slowly carving me up. The incident continued to ferment online. Accusations flooded in, and public opinion firmly branded me a playboy. John Corporation stock plummeted as a result. My father suspended me from my position. My mother, viewing me as a disgrace, avoided seeing me. I had no way to defend myself, but deeper than the chill of being distrusted was a sense of urgency. I was anxious about what Victoria was thinking now. Was she still heartbroken? Did she still love me? Might she do something drastic? No, I had to clear this up. Victoria had blocked me on all communication platforms. I heard she hadn't been to her company lately either. Seeing her seemed almost impossible. The Sterling and Eastwood families lived in the same gated community, each mansion guarded by dedicated security. Previously, entering the Sterling residence was effortless. The guards practically escorted me to the door. Today, they adamantly blocked my way. Chairman Sterling gave orders. Without his permission, no one enters the Sterling residence for the time being. My chest tightened. Clearly, this message was meant for me, but I couldn't wait. The villa area was quiet and vast, its surrounding greenery protecting homeowners' privacy well. However, the aesthetically pleasing low walls also offered an opportunity for trespassers like me. Beatrice Sterling had always been strict with Victoria. No A grades meant no dinner, skipping class meant kneeling on the floor, disrespectful words meant writing apologies. The most severe instance was when Victoria, trying to escape family control, secretly applied to B University miles away from home. When Arthur Sterling received the acceptance letter, he was furious and locked Victoria up, forbidding any visitors. I was incredibly worried back then, pacing outside the Sterling yard day after day. Eventually, I found a gap in the wall, climbed over, scaled up to the second floor, and found Victoria. Back then, she spent her days curled up in a corner of her room, torn between freedom and family, her spirits hitting rock bottom, often speaking despairingly. So during that time, I came almost every night. Even if we didn't talk, just being there was comforting. I wondered, would the recently heartbroken Victoria be as fragile as she was back then? With that thought, worry almost spilled out of me, and my steps quickened involuntarily. I vaulted smoothly into the Sterling's backyard, used the vines to climb onto the balcony of Victoria's room. She was inside in the spacious princess-like room. Victoria, wearing simple white loungewear, was curled up vulnerably on the sofa, eyes slightly red, arms wrapped around her knees, lost in thought. I hadn't seen her like this in a long time. A pang shot through my heart. Just as I was about to knock, Arthur Sterling stormed in angrily. I quickly sidestepped, hiding behind the wall. Arthur Sterling's expression was far from pleasant. I felt a flicker of suspicion. The outside world claimed he was tearing ties with Jiang Corporation for his beloved daughter's sake, supporting her to the extreme. Even if there wasn't overt affection between father and daughter, it shouldn't be this confrontational. Alarmed, I was about to speak up in her defense when I heard Arthur Sterling's merciless rebuke. "My mother and I poured so much effort into you, arranged this marriage with the Eastwoods through great pains, and you ruined years of our careful planning for some poor kid." I froze. The tension in the room escalated. War seemed imminent. Victoria stood up defiantly, her tone laced with obvious sarcasm. What are you unhappy about? Didn't you just want that piece of land from Jiang Corporation? Chairman Eastwood genuinely thought it was his son's fault, and you ended up getting a huge profit handed to you. Your rival of many years is now ruined in reputation. Weren't you busy celebrating yesterday? Exposed, Arthur Sterling flew into a rage, pointing at Victoria's nose and shouting, "Who taught you to speak to your elders like that?" If you think you're so independent, hand over all your cards and get out with that poor kid to fend for yourselves." It took me a moment to grasp the meaning behind their words. I remained rooted to the spot. But something deep inside me began to melt, almost imperceptibly. Victoria's temper flared too. "You nearly bankrupted Jiang Corp using me, and now you want to kick me out? You're as selfish and hypocritical as ever." Nobody expected Arthur Sterling to actually raise his hand and slap her. In that split second, a young man rushed in, pulling Victoria behind him protectively. Silas Shaw? Wasn't this the student from a poor background I personally recruited from a university for Jiang Corporation a couple of years ago? Before I could react, Silas spoke, his tone firm yet pleading. "Well, Mr. Sterling, if you need to hit or curse someone, direct it at me. Victoria is pregnant right now. She can't handle this kind of stress." I don't remember how I left the Sterling residence utterly devastated. My heart felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. Each beat brought sharp, stabbing pain, as if countless tiny needles were pricking my chest, making it hard to breathe. I tried to ignore the strange sensation, but reason struggled against the overwhelming emotions of that moment. Pain washed over me in waves, drowning my logic. It took a while for rationality to resurface. I dialed my assistant's number. "Investigate Victoria Sterling's movements over the past year thoroughly." The autumn wind carried a desolate chill, seeping into my chest, running down my spine, making me shiver. Yet even this couldn't compare to the icy coldness deep within my heart. The sheer volume of information was suffocating. My head swam, but I forced myself to take several deep breaths, slowly piecing together the conversation between the Sterlings. The Sterling Corporation had been declining for years. An alliance through marriage with Jiang Corporation was a powerful safety net for them. No wonder the Sterlings had been pushing so hard for the engagement these past 2 years. Victoria herself hadn't been opposed to me, but then Silas Shaw appeared unexpectedly, and they fell for each other instantly. Victoria asked her father to cancel the engagement but was refused. The Sterling family couldn't afford to offend Jiang Corporation over a penniless young man, especially given their recent downturn. So, Victoria orchestrated the scene at the engagement party. Using fake photos and tearful accusations, she shifted all blame for ending our relationship onto me, making everyone believe I was unfaithful and had wronged a good woman like her. My father, valuing relationships, ensured that the benefits originally promised to the Sterlings remained intact, even throwing in a piece of land worth hundreds of millions. And Victoria, clearly the one at fault, positioned herself as the victim, preserving her reputation. Thinking this through, remembering my father, who had almost aged overnight trying to salvage Jiang Corporation's reputation, and my mother, who had wept incessantly, a chill ran down my spine. The Sterlings. You can truly know a person's face, but not their heart. Staring at the closed gates of the Sterling residence, I gripped the steering wheel tightly. More than a decade of sincerity couldn't even earn me honesty. The entire Eastwood family was paying the price for Victoria's selfishness and evasion of responsibility. Only when all the irrefutable evidence was laid before my parents did my sense of guilt lessen significantly. 3 days before the engagement party, Victoria personally went to the Sterling Corporation's office building ground floor to print those photos. There was no anonymous sender. After the engagement party was canceled, Victoria brought Silas Shaw to the Sterling residence, argued with her father at the entrance, and the three parted unhappily. In a photo, Victoria and Silas were kissing under a landmark in Sea City, the scene intimate and picturesque. The date stamp at the bottom indicated it was taken a year ago. My father looked up, puzzled. I calmly produced the second set of documents, a pregnancy test report from a renowned private hospital dated a week ago. On the black and white image, a small, indistinct circle was visible, but the unusually high progesterone levels listed below confirmed everything. At the bottom of the report, the words, 3 weeks pregnant, were clearly written. Even my father, accustomed to major upheavals, was shocked by the Sterling family's shamelessness. It took him a while to process it all, and they saw they couldn't hide it anymore, so they dumped all the blame on us. The Sterlings really play a good game. My mother clutched the documents, looking at the unformed fetus on the report, then glanced silently towards my head, feeling as if a green aura hovered around her son. Recalling the gossip and rumors she'd endured recently, she couldn't help but snort coldly, and scumbag man and scumbag woman. Truly a perfect match. Lonnie, and you decided how to retaliate against them? Well, of course. 2 days later, the Eastwood-Sterling engagement breakup scandal took a complete turn. Sterling heiress risks all for love. Victoria Sterling pregnant, devoted sincere Eastwood cruelly deceived. Brett Sterling Corporation apologizes. Victoria Sterling kicked out of family home. Scrolling through the trending topics that nearly crashed social media platforms on my tablet, the only feeling I had was irony. One had to admit, public opinion truly had the power to overturn everything, destroying a person's social image in an instant, only to pull them back onto a pedestal with a few words. This time, it was the Sterling Corporation caught in the crosshairs. Perhaps 10 years ago, Sterling Corp. could rival Jung Corp. But internal strife plagued the family in recent years. Countless relatives meddled in the family business, leading to chaotic management and stagnant growth. The company's stock couldn't withstand such a massive public opinion shock. Arthur Sterling was forced to publicly apologize to the Eastwood family and the public. On camera, the portly middle-aged man's eyes were filled with exhaustion. His rimless glasses cleverly concealed his shrewd, mercantile nature, making him appear much more sincere. Of course, only appear. Under constant pressure from the board to save his precarious chairmanship, he had to feign ignorance of his daughter's actions and publicly announce the severing of father-daughter ties with the morally corrupt Victoria. Victoria vanished completely from the public eye. However, some netizens, through doxing, discovered that after the scandal broke, Victoria posted a picture on an alternate account holding hands with a man. Captioned, "Even if thousands oppose me, I will go forward." Our childhood friend is quite the romantic, isn't she? Framing her fiancé for a poor kid wasn't enough. She had to defy the whole world. Wayne Wallace grinned at me. Although Victoria never showed her face, secrets rarely stay hidden. Word was that Arthur Sterling, deeply embarrassed by Victoria's premarital pregnancy, had completely kicked her out. And Victoria, determined to fight her family, clinging to the naive belief that love is enough, resolutely left with Silas Shaw. When Wayne Wallace told me this, he didn't forget to mock the glowing green hat metaphorically perched on my head. This childhood friend had always been sly. Annoyed, I grabbed an apple and threw it at him. "Still thanks to you," Wayne dodged hastily, pleading for mercy. Wallace Media was just testing the waters with a news company, and then Mr. Eastwood Jr. here hands us such a massive scoop. Almost got us publicly listed. Ponpat. "Is this really over now that you've cleared your name?" Wayne dropped the joking tone, asking seriously. I gave a cold laugh. Jiang Corporation lost billions in market value overnight. The Sterling Corporation, playing dumb, almost made a fortune short selling our stock. Then there were the investors who couldn't bear the loss and jumped from rooftops. My mother, who spent half a month in the hospital from the shame and mockery, and my father, who had never bowed his head to anyone in his life but spent those days apologizing everywhere. How could it possibly be over just like that? I logically resumed my position at the company. The recent turmoil caused by public opinion wasn't entirely detrimental. It helped my father and me see many people's true colors. Once the stock market stabilized completely, I initiated the largest round of layoffs in the company's recent history, aiming to remove dissenters and inject fresh blood into management. Some left, others joined, some were demoted, others promoted. The marketing department had hired many newcomers in the past 2 years, including Silas Shaw. Silas was professionally competent, almost standing out among the new generation of employees. I made exceptions and promoted a group of newcomers, except for Silas. His hopes dashed, Silas could only ask HR directly. But HR coldly informed him it was upper management's decision, knowing nothing more. According to regulations, an employee at Silas's level couldn't meet with me. Thus, despite his multiple requests for an explanation, I rejected them all. As for the real reason behind this, I believe he knew perfectly well. Having offended the young master of the Eastwood family and not being accepted by the Sterlings, Silas couldn't find another job even if he wanted to jump ship. He had no choice but to tough it out at Young Corporation. However, Silas seemingly couldn't swallow this indignity and actually brought Victoria to confront me. This was the first time Victoria and I had truly sat down face to face since the engagement party debacle. As her pregnancy wasn't far along, Victoria was still slim. She wore high heels to project confidence, but heavy makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion on her face. I have an important meeting this afternoon. If you're here about Silas Shaw's failed promotion, I advise you not to waste your breath. Go back early. Facing Victoria, I no longer had the tenderness or patience I once did. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so aggressive right from the start. She paused before saying, "Mr. Eastwood, if you're angry because I engineered the breakup, then I sincerely apologize here. But Silas is innocent." Victoria was used to being the young mistress, likely accustomed to my subservient attitude towards her. Even saying "I'm sorry," her tone remained haughty, as if implying I should know better and accept her apology quickly. I scoffed. What is the real purpose of Miss Sterling seeking me out? Then promote Silas. I placed both hands on the desk, leaning forward slightly aggressively, looking directly into Victoria's eyes. I wonder, are you ordering me as Sincere Eastwood's ex-fiancée, or as the heiress kicked out by the Sterling family? Victoria clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Her face instantly flushed red, about to explode in anger. I smiled roguishly, delivering a blatant threat. "Once you should know, Silas Shaw offended our Eastwood family. Right now, besides Jiang Corporation, nobody dares hire him. If Miss Sterling displeases me, blocking a promotion is a minor matter." The conversation ended unpleasantly. Watching Victoria's retreating figure, I recalled the families of investors who committed suicide due to the stock market crash. Remembering them holding urns and 3-year-old children protesting downstairs at Jiang Corporation, a wave of nausea washed over me. Victoria, oh Victoria, since you willingly made an enemy of the world for true love, then fight it to the end. Knowing this young mistress, cut off by the Sterling family without my support, unemployment would inevitably be difficult. Silas Shaw, who supported himself through part-time jobs during university, definitely couldn't sustain Victoria's high spending habits on his meager salary. It's easy to go from frugal to lavish, but hard the other way around. This simple truth is perfectly illustrated by the rich girl and the poor boy. I had brief interactions with Silas Shaw during new employee recruitment. Silas had excellent grades, was meticulous and careful in his work, and fiercely ambitious. He had an incredibly clear career plan, a real go-getter determined to escape his current social stratum. His only flaw was always looking for shortcuts and opportunities for quick advancement. He thought latching onto the Sterling family would save him 20 years of struggle. If both sides had been more sincere, perhaps I could have magnanimously let Victoria go. Unfortunately, they chose this underhanded method. Given Silas's ambition, he certainly wouldn't be content as a low-level employee in the marketing department, nor would he allow Victoria to become completely useless to him. The current calm was merely the illusion of moonlight on water. But I didn't expect this day to come even sooner than I imagined. After Silas's fifth failed attempt to schedule a meeting with the CEO's office, he directly intercepted me in the underground parking garage. He wore a simple shirt, his figure lean and tall, his pale complexion making him look particularly refined. Having navigated the professional world for so long, the image of the plainly dressed, stuttering student from 3 years ago was long gone. One had to admit his appearance certainly gave him an advantage in being a kept man. I calmly held the car door open. An employee bypassing hierarchy to approach the boss privately. You should know this is a major taboo. What if this employee can bring immense value to the boss? Silas even projected a faint air of relaxation. Clearly he wasn't here to discuss a promotion. I raised an eyebrow in surprise, indicating I was listening. Silas was smart, and smart people don't beat around the bush. He smiled faintly and took a file from his briefcase, handing it to me. Silas's eyes shone with unmistakable confidence and composure. I opened the file in front of him and quickly scanned it. I expected some innovative project or personal proposal. Instead, Silas delivered a compilation of nearly all of Sterling Corporation's illicit activities over the past decade: bribery of high officials, securing illegal loans by bribing bank executives, hiring violent organizations for retaliation. Bold headings listed offenses, any one of which was enough to send the entire Sterling family to prison for years. Silas looked at me triumphantly. Eastwood and Sterling families have been rivals for over a decade. After the recent engagement fiasco, the Sterlings kicked John Corp while it was down, nearly bankrupting it through short selling. I imagine Mr. Eastwood isn't willing to just swallow that, right? What I'm offering is enough to ensure Sterling Corp never recovers. I took a deep breath, truly struggling to comprehend what kind of lunatic I had hired. "Oh, you got this from Victoria?" "Yes," Silas affirmed my guess without hesitation. "You're about to be a father, yet you plan to use me to send the mother of your child to prison? Shoot, you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, Mr. Eastwood. You understand that. And you considered the consequences for the Sterling family and Victoria if you give me these documents?" Silas glanced at me, annoyed, clearly wondering why my questions were so sentimental. Circling around family and Victoria. In his negotiation scenario, I should have been offering him a higher position by now. Silas answered impatiently. I gave Victoria and the Sterlings a chance. Unfortunately, the father and daughter are just that stupid. They messed up a perfectly good situation so badly that they're about to lose the entire company. As for Victoria, Silas paused. Something that has lost its value can only be treated as a disposable pawn. Good. I smiled with satisfaction, finally getting the answer I wanted. The next second, I casually opened the back passenger door. Victoria Sterling's figure was starkly revealed. The situation unfolded far more absurdly than I had envisioned. Watching Victoria, eyes red with fury, slap Silas across the face, I silently took 2 steps back, giving them ample space. Victoria's long-cultivated heiress temper was real. She swung her handbag at Silas repeatedly. Silas, knowing he was wrong, didn't fight back but dodged clumsily. It was quitting time, and onlookers were gathering. Hearing the murmurs and pointed fingers, Silas, humiliated, pushed Victoria angrily. "Are you crazy? Watch out." Seeing Victoria stumble backward, almost falling, I instinctively reached out to steady her. Not out of any real sympathy for this pair of scumbags, but this was Jiang Corporation territory. Their scene was becoming ugly, and I didn't want the company dragged into the spotlight again over their mess. The moment Victoria fell into my arms, Silas's sensitive, fragile nerve, a mix of inferiority and arrogance, snapped completely. "Sincere Eastwood, I dedicated myself to Jiang Corporation, and you pursued a personal vendetta. Fine. Now I offer sincere cooperation, and you betray me. Honestly, I was wrongly accused in this matter too. Half a month earlier, just before Victoria planned to frame me and break off the engagement, our company firewall suffered repeated attacks, and there were records of unauthorized access to the decision-making system outside of work hours to view confidential files. My father and I took this very seriously, specifically meeting with the senior executive whose account was compromised. The executive knew nothing about his account being hacked. An investigation revealed the problem originated with Silas Shaw. This was the fundamental reason I hadn't promoted him. Keeping him around was to investigate if a larger force was behind him. Jiang Corporation welcomes talented and ambitious young people, but those who always try to take unethical shortcuts are another matter entirely. According to Silas's original plan, he would have smoothly entered Sterling Corp. In a high position as the prince consort, thanks to the insistence of the love-struck heiress. The confidential files stolen from Jiang Corp. Were meant to be his offering to Arthur Sterling. Unfortunately for him, Jiang Corporation always prioritized information security, and Silas failed. What he didn't expect was that Victoria truly was an incompetent fool. Even her pregnancy couldn't sway her father. Seeing his plan fall apart, burdened with a high-maintenance dependent who only spent money, Silas decided to go all in, embarking on the path of selling out his partner for personal gain. While Victoria slept, he used her credentials to access the Sterling Corporation's intranet, digging through all their business dealings over the years, even unearthing evidence of their illegal activities. To be able to assess the situation and find the most advantageous path for himself in such a short time, I had to admire Silas's capability and intelligence. In an era with less stringent laws, where the winner takes all, someone like him would undoubtedly be a major figure. The boomerang had hit him right between the eyes, which was equally unexpected for me. Victoria's presence here was also simple to explain. Likely realizing the Sterling family was facing an insurmountable crisis, although kicked out by her father, they were still blood relatives. Given time, perhaps the matter would have blown over. Victoria had come specifically to plead for Sterling Corp., hoping to leverage my past affection to save her father from the crisis. But she never imagined that while she was fighting for her family, the man sleeping beside her was personally pushing her into hell. And this man was the father of her child. Perhaps because of my unnecessary steadying hand, Victoria felt a flicker of reliance. Just like when she used to get into trouble during her student days, and I would resignedly clean up her messes. So when confronting Silas, her voice grew louder, spewing the nastiest insults she could think of. Gold digger, selfish beast came pouring out. Perhaps those closest know best how to inflict pain. Someone like Silas couldn't stand belittlement and mockery. Even though Victoria was overwhelmed with grief and anger, tears falling like broken strands of pearls, Silas only cared about his own face. They brought all of this upon themselves. I watched coldly as they hurled vicious words at each other, unable to help but recall their declarations of unshakable love and defiance against the world just half a month ago. A sense of disillusionment washed over me. This relationship, fraught with calculation from the start, demanded payment from countless families behind both companies. There should be limits even to selfishness. The chaotic scene finally ended with the sounds of police sirens and an ambulance. Silas Shaw was arrested on charges of illegal acquisition of confidential documents for profit. Victoria, overcome with grief, fainted and was taken to the hospital. I heard that after waking up, she was just as decisive as when she had thrown false accusations at me during the engagement party she terminated Silas's. Child, she repeatedly demanded to see me. The woman in the hospital bed was deathly pale, a stark contrast to the radiant heiress of the past. Out of basic decency, I poured a glass of water and placed it by her hand. This gesture perhaps gave Victoria some false hope. Her eyes red, she grasped my hand. Her damp eyelashes clumped together like rain-soaked butterflies, her pupils radiating brokenness. Victoria's voice was pleading, "Sincere, you'll help me, right?" I roughly guessed what she was about to say and coldly tried to pull my hand back. But Victoria, panicked, gripped tighter. Her voice grew louder, trembling more intensely, her words tumbling out faster as if afraid I would leave any second. I already got rid of Silas's baby. Father was taken away by the police. Sterling Corp. is completely finished. Sincere. You're all I have left in the world. Can we start over just like before? She shook my hand excitedly, asking again and again, desperately begging for an answer. "Okay, please?" I leaned down, looking directly into her eyes, my expression blank, without a trace of emotion or hesitation. "Victoria, there's no turning back in this world." After saying this, I decisively pulled my hand away and turned to leave. No matter how she cried or screamed, I didn't look back. The elevator descended smoothly. I looked at my reflection in the polished surface, detached, almost clinical. Taking a deep breath, I consciously shifted my expression to one of warmth and reliability. Ding, the elevator stopped at the 4th floor, psychiatry. A small boy who had clearly been waiting rushed into my arms. "Uncle Zhang, you finally came." The little boy's voice held the joy of fulfilled anticipation mixed with an almost imperceptible trace of grievance. I smiled, patting his head reassuringly. The nurse who had been with the boy came over. I dropped the gentle demeanor reserved for the child and spoke professionally. "How is Mrs. Mu doing now?" Translator's note. The original text introduces a Mrs. Mu here without prior mention. For clarity, I'll refer to her as Nuo's mother. The nurse shook her head. "Same as always. We just gave her a sedative. She's resting now." The child in my arms trembled visibly. I quickly comforted him. "Uncle Zhang's house feels a bit empty lately. Nuo, if you're willing, would you like to come stay with Uncle for a while?" The boy nodded instinctively, then hesitated, remembering something. "But Mama is here. Whenever you have time, Uncle will bring you to see Mama, okay?" I coaxed gently. Only then did the little boy relax. This child, Nuo, was the son of a former Jiang Corporation contractor. To provide a better life for his wife and child, the man took out millions in loans to undertake a Jiang Corp project. He had hoped the project payment would improve their lives, but the turmoil between the Eastwood and Sterling families led to the project being halted. Unable to bear the pressure of debt, the man jumped to his death. His wife suffered a mental breakdown as a result. Families shattered like Nuo's due to this turmoil were not few. The chaos stirred up by Victoria had a massive impact on both companies, especially on the investors who had long trusted Jiang Corporation, many losing their entire life savings. Families like Nuo's, broken apart by the fallout, were numerous. Running a business is never just about surface glamour. It carries the responsibility for thousands of families. Next, we bring you the latest local news. The chairman of our city's well-known, long-established enterprise, Sterling Corporation, was arrested this morning on suspicion of bribery, illegal hiring, and other charges. His daughter, Victoria Sterling, has also been indicted by prosecutors for slander. On the hospital's public television screen, Arthur Sterling, handcuffed, was being swarmed by reporters. And that young man who had struggled so hard to get from a remote mountain area to the city was already incarcerated, effectively erased from public record. What awaited Victoria was also life behind bars. The child in my arms shifted restlessly. I sighed softly. Selfish and foolish people must always pay the price for their actions.